All right, here we are at the Green River Ranch in the Green River Cove. Big props to Brian and Alan for kicking us off. I got none other than legend, green race champion, canoeist, and how do we call you? A geologist? What is it? What's the term for someone in your field?
It's definitely geologist.
Okay, geologist Phil Prince. If you haven't checked out his YouTube channel and what he's got going on, it's pretty amazing. He's been breaking down all of the different watersheds and how the rainfall affected them, the way the slopes crumbled, how just the whole event happened. So we're going to get pretty deep into that.
We will.
We got a fundraiser going on right now for the Green Race Conservation Project. We're here for one reason, to destroy to restore the grain and help this community out any way we can. So go to our socials there. And if you're watching the live show, do us a favor, give us a share. Try and get the word out there as much as you can. Instagram, Twitter, wherever your jam is. But right now, just so you know, we have a $4,200 badfish raft that you can bid on for $2,100. A power slide, Liquid Logic power slide, $1,400 value. You can get it for $700 right now. We have a ton of prizes online. You wouldn't believe it. For people who are here, we have a silent auction going on right now. It's amazing. There's probably a couple 300 people here, and it's like a ghost town here because everybody is on the river.
On the river. Got the drone flying though.
But make sure you go out to the Green Race Facebook page, greenrace.us, and get involved with the auction. Our amazing sponsors. I mean, I'm just looking through this. You can get a watershed dry bag, $159. It's going for $50 right now. You can get, kayaks, canoes. I really like the fact that we have live art going on here, and we'll get back to that. We have Arlen, who makes the Green Race glass, making the glass live. We'll be showing you that. We've got Levi Rhodes, who's doing a live painting. We've got Candace Day. She is here doing a live painting. What's up, Levi? You got your stuff set up? We'll bring Levi up here in just a second. And it's all on. But right now, we're going to go to our special guest. I want to give a shout out to the live show crew coming in. Not exactly making the big bucks here. We got Jake Cooper on cameras. We got Jack Pitfield, who is in the trailer. We've got Tim Kerber in there in the trailer. He's going to be running the switcher. We've got other people, all kinds of people. All right.
Including geologists.
Including geologists. Yeah. So how do we want to do this, Phil? Do we want to talk about my experience in here during the storm? Or do we want to talk about what happened first? Or do we want to go back and forth between the two? You've seen a little bit of what happened.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, I think you should share your experience here. Are folks seeing the Google Earth screen there? Do we know if that's up and running?
If you have the crew, there we go.
Yeah,
they got you going there.
Okay, cool. So right here in the middle of Google Earth, that's where we are right now. That's the ranch, that big open area. We're sitting somewhere right where the hand is there. It does not look quite like that anymore. So.
Hey, drone pilot, can you go directly above the ranch so we can switch back and forth of a view of what it looked like before the flood and right now?
All right. Yeah.
Come on, we're getting busy with this.
Yeah, I like that. No, that's a high level. I would expect nothing less. So what I would say is this is what we can appreciate as people on the ground. Talk about what you saw here. And then we can get on Google Earth. We got the LiDAR. We'll zoom out. We'll look at the shape of the landscape. You can talk about where the water came from, because when you're down here in the Green River Cove, where a lot of the water comes from is actually quite interesting. It's not. I don't think it's always something obvious if you don't spend a lot of time looking at maps. We can talk about why the green kind of is how it is, and we can talk about how the weather interacted with the landscape here to blow this up into something that was expected to be big, but probably went even beyond what was expected. So I think if you start with with the human side of it, we'll have a way to give that context
Right.
in the landscape.
Well, I think, if we can get that before and after drone shot real quick, just so our viewers can see just how dramatic. Are you above us, Nathan?
I'm above the ranch.
I'll tell you what, as you get that rolling, I got this satellite imagery pulled up here, right? So this is and the drone is what we need, but this is from a Sentinel satellite
Can
image.
we punch in the drone in the trailer? Can we punch the?
There you go. Oh man.
There we go. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Uh-oh, do we lose him? All right, let's. I guess we're gonna stick with you, Phil.
We're gonna stick with me. I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna do my best to keep it rolling. Yeah, this is before or after straight off. But look at that. Come on.
Yeah.
John.
Yeah.
John.
That is insane. Flip that back. Let's see the other one real quick. That is hard to believe.
It's in the gorge. It's even more hard to believe. I mean, look at that like giant white.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, look at this.
Oh my gosh.
So look at that.
That is insane. Well, so
It is insane.
like you talk about, it was expected to be a big event.
That's
okay?
right.
And
That's right.
I'm a little bit of a weather nerd. Okay.
As any boater should.
As any boater should be. And you kind of have your three, or the way I think of it, three main weather models.
Okay.
You have the Canadian model,
Okay.
you have the Euro model, and then you have the GFS model.
Okay.
All right. Yep. And a lot of times you'll have a big rain event, and the GFS will say it's going to be 8 inches of rain, but the others will be like, it'll be 3 inches or 4
Right.
inches. They disagree.
Right.
What was real interesting about this system was that all three of the weather models were predicting in the ballpark of 20 inches. And they were predicting that for like 5 or 6 days. So
Yeah.
it was definitely predicted to be big, but I mean, I don't know, you probably know the rainfall totals that happen more than I do, but I mean, it was 20 inches in several spots. And
The biggest measured total was on the east side of the Black Mountains, like Busick area. So if you took Highway 80 up out of Marion, drove up the Blue Ridge Escarpment, and went over the back into the South Toe headwaters, right around that area, there was a record of almost 31 inches for the whole event. Now the big kicker here, and the one reason I guess that a model would be pretty confident no matter which one it is that it was going to be a big event is that the rainfall, the moist air was coming straight from the Gulf of Mexico and going straight up the front of the Blue Ridge, right? So usually we get weather from the west or southwest. This came from due south, so it ran up the mountains in a different way than is common for this landscape, and for that reason, just with the direction of the weather and the landscape, that's how you know it's going to be big. And with the topography we have, bigger mountains in some areas, much more topography for that weather to go up and push the air up even higher. That's going to wring more rain out of it. It expands and cools and forces more rain to fall. So you could get areas that may have gone beyond that.
wow.
And it will be interesting to see if we ever know if some areas went beyond. But suffice it to say, you could talk about the rain in feet for
That's
for
crazy.
the event instead of inches.
And this was all in like 72 hours with a 8 to 10 chunk coming in the last.
Yeah, and that the saturation before it, and then if you hit it with 8 to 10 fast, for landsliding, for debris flows, landsliding claimed a huge number of lives with this event. About 5 inches in 24 hours is the threshold to expect to see that. If you throw in 8 or 10 inches in just a few hours on top of an already saturated
That's
landscape, it's you. So you see it coming, but no one alive has seen one of these events in the Appalachians. Closest thing would be 1916, right? So
have they coined this a 500-year flood, a 10,000-year flood? Like, I hear
Yeah,
those
yeah.
numbers thrown around, but I don't really know what they mean.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm from my end, I guess. I think it's a strange way to look at it to me, and it's a strange way to look at it in this landscape because, like I said, of what you'll see me talk about, show you on the maps here, draw in Microsoft Paint, whatever. It's all about the topography and how the weather moved against it. Funny thing is, if you go back, say 10,000 years ago, that was the end of the Pleistocene. That was basically
Right.
like coming off the ice ages. So everything was so different at that time. It's sort of an apples and oranges, but the way to think about it for me, and I guess this would be where your kind of where your experience comes in here and what you saw the river do. When we look at the landscape, we look at it with this LiDAR imagery. We'll see that here soon as well. You can see scars from past events. You can see scars from landsliding. You can see scars from flooding, things like that. From what I've seen thus far, like the scarring and change to the landscape that this will have produced, it's not obvious to me that there's something like that recorded in the landscape that we can easily see, which would suggest that there hasn't been anything of this magnitude for a long period. Now, maybe we just don't know what to look for.
Yep.
And that's I think that's part of the issue here is like no one knew exactly what big was going to look like with this event.
In geology, I'm going to butcher this, as I normally do.
Hey,
but
feel free.
there are kind of two schools of thought. And I think there used to be a school that was on this end that said geology happens over tens of thousands of years in small increments, and then you get the landscape you see today. And then
Right.
there was a school of thought that said, no, the landscape is formed by big events,
Right.
major events
Yeah.
that have happened over history. But I think just from our discussions, these
Yeah.
are kind of meshing together at this point, or...
Yeah. I mean, there's always something happening, right? So the river, it's running back there now. You know, it's moving material downstream. A lot of it right now is just what's dissolved in the water. I mean, it's not pushing huge amounts of mud and rock and cobbles and whatever right now. But there's always something happening. But yes, you do an immense amount of work with an event like this, absolutely. And I guess you would look at the world as you see it today in this region, maybe as like the integrated total of like a bunch of these over the years. I don't know. It's a way of thinking, but you got to keep in mind we ain't been watching that long.
Sorry, I got distracted by my son over here jumping off of the bridge. Jake, can you...
Well, this is a Mad Max world down
It
here.
is.
Man.
Kind of anything goes
The
down here.
rules are suspended, I think.
Do we have the drone up in the air right now? All right, can we cut to the drone and let's just kind of look at the amount of material that this is going on. Possibly our drone's not up in the air. It looks like he may be eating some lunch. But let's go ahead. Yeah, there we go. So there's a real good indication of what kind of material was moved. And how many years would the grain have to sit there at normal flows to do that?
Well, quite a few, quite a few. And I mean, I guess that's the whole thing. Like, yeah, at normal flows, you're never going to move this stuff that moved. As we talk here, we'll throw a LiDAR on my Google Earth, and we can switch back there in a minute. Let the drone kind of
Well, hang on,
cruise
before
and
we
show
get into
there.
yours,
All right.
let's jump into...
You got to do your experiences
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
All right,
yeah,
sorry,
that's all right.
sorry.
We hit
digress.
the ground
We
running.
digress.
We're fine.
Okay, so kind of where my story begins is the H2O Dreams Kayak School stages its operation right out here on the riverfront. Great kayak school, amazing kids program. Chris Wing runs that. And like I say, I knew it was going to flood. I knew the river was going to get out of its banks.
Right.
Okay, and I know that area is just outside of the 100-year flood zone. So I wanted to make sure, called those guys. They said, yep, we got everything buttoned up. And it's not that I didn't trust them. I just wanted to kind of reassure because Fred's house was just downstream at my neighbor's house. And I didn't want anything to kind of wash into it. So I came down, drove down in here, And that night before, when I checked it out, I called my wife. I said, the river's almost out of its banks right now, and like we say, there was like 8 more inches or 10 more inches of rain predicted until the storm was over.
Yep.
The hurricane was just making landfall, in Florida, in the Panhandle,
Right.
when it was already flooding here. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna button in and whatever. And this is sort of what I woke up to here. I put together a little clip of some raw cell phone footage. And I just want to talk about the time that this happens. Okay, so this is around 5 in the morning, maybe a little after 5 in the morning. And so I got in the van. It was raining so hard you couldn't sleep, and crossed the bridge, went over to the other side of the bridge here at Wilderness Cove, and that is looking at the road. Here is in front of HGO Dreams Kayaking, and that's the end of the road right there. The water is going over the road.
Wow.
Okay? That's about 5:20 in the morning, all right? Now this is at daybreak, which was a little after 7, what time the sun was coming up. You can see how much the river rose from that period. And if you look close, you can see a container, which is floating basically right through right here. It would actually been right over there, about 20 feet from where we're at right now. And so in this time, obviously Fred got out of his house. I said, come up to my porch. We're going to watch the show.
Right.
And this time it was a bad flood, but it wasn't catastrophic at this point. You know what I'm saying? It was amazing to watch. You couldn't really believe the water was that high, but it wasn't super catastrophic at this time.
Yep.
And so is this kind of what you would think at like 7:30 in the morning? Like, were you thinking the rivers were looking like this at 7 in the morning?
Yeah, I mean that. Trying to follow along from Greenville, I got up pretty early down there. I think right around this time, just when it was really starting to get light, was when power was starting to go out down there with the wind. And yeah, you envision out of banks flooding. You might wash out a bridge or two. Definitely going to be some landslides. A big event that people are going to talk about, right?
Yeah.
And that what does the upper limit of that look like? I guess I personally did not know, but something like, I mean, this.
Now
that's a lot of water,
and that's 2 hours after. It's only 2 hours. Okay.
Yeah.
Now this is like 2.5 hours. This is right before 8 o'clock.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So at a little after 5, the bridge, the water was barely going across the road. Now it's halfway across the field a mere 2 hours later, or some 2.5 hours later.
Yeah.
Okay. And now these cars were parked out of the 100-year flood zone right there.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're watching the water come up, and the car's kind of starting to move. One thing I experienced is I saw cars floating past with the lights on, and you think worst case scenario.
Oh yeah.
Look at that rain.
Can
you see how hard that's
a
raining?
lot of rain.
It was raining.
That is a lot of rain.
But when a car starts to float or gets water in it, the lights will turn on.
Mm-hmm.
So we were like worst case scenario. Oh my gosh, somebody got flooded because the lights were on, but we saw them turn on those cars. So interesting side note. So now, we're just getting into more debris. Obviously, you can see it raining like nobody's business. Here, we're about 8 o'clock. All right, now the water is right up to the edge of the fire pit. There's another container going downriver. This is right before Fred's house flooded off of its foundation. So at this point right here, where we're standing, there's the fire pit. We're probably in about knee-deep water right here.
Wow.
And you can just see how hard it's raining. Now, this is when it started to kind of transition for me from a big deal to like it was getting catastrophic. This was the first time, like as a kayaker, that I'm like, oh, this is no longer exciting.
Yeah.
Because you do.
Exactly.
You get excited
Oh,
as a
yeah.
whitewater paddling for flooding. You love to see what's happening.
Yeah.
And this is the point to where, we're watching these containers come by, and we're basically just like betting whether they're going to smash into the car or whatnot.
Right.
And this is like right around 8 o'clock. And this is, in the weirdest way, when the rain really started to pick up. You know, it was raining ridiculously hard, but at this point, it was just, you can see the wind picking up, trees are falling, and it's getting not so cool.
Right.
And then it just kind of continued to build, and you know, Fred and I were, you know, just on the porch, and then here in a second you'll kind of see when it got really serious. Here we are. This is right when the initial surge is happening. This was May's camper trailer that she stored on our property.
Right.
And this is right around 8 o'clock.
Okay.
And we're going out there. You can see we're geared up. We put on all our paddling gear. And the river is just like getting a little out of control. And we're just trying to do anything we can to save what we can.
Yeah, for sure.
And there you can see the roof of the kayak school. There's
Yeah.
the roof of Fred's house, which is underwater. And at this point where we're sitting right now, it would be, I don't know, maybe waist deep, something like that.
Right.
And you kind of think this is the peak. You know what I mean? We're still kind of chipper at this point.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're just like,
Yep.
you know, Fred's lost his house. He's come to terms with it. You know, we're on high ground. We can't really believe this is happening. But, you know, it was. So we're pulling this thing up, and there you can kind of see it get into the fire pit.
Right.
And this is right about the time that I quit videoing. I think I got one or two more shots after this. And this is where I really want to kind of dive into your
Sure.
expertise here.
Sure.
I think there's one or two more shots after this, but this was right around 9 o'clock. The river was coming up big time, like nobody's business, encompassing the whole field. You can see we evacuated our neighbors from down the street. Their house got fully flooded, half washed away. It's in that debris pile they're picking off right now.
Right.
And we really can't believe what's going on.
Yeah.
And at this point right here, the river went from where it's at right now, which is extremely flooded in this video, and over the next 15 minutes, from like 8:45 to a little after 9, it rose, I'm going to be conservative and say 6 feet, and got all the way up to the deck. At that point, I thought the dam blew.
Yeah.
I thought that it was, the water changed from, changed color. It was just all debris. You know, it basically became all debris.
Yep.
And we went up behind the cabin and basically thought, this is the last video shot I got of that giant log jam coming off. And it just got worse than that.
Wow.
And it was ripping the power lines down.
Yeah.
Houses were in there. Anything you can imagine. It was off the hook. And that's right around the peak. Right there.
Yeah.
And that was the last shot I took before we took off to higher ground.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's probably an appropriate thing to do
exactly.
at that point.
Exactly. So obviously I was wrong. The dam did hold.
It did.
So
as did all other dams involved.
Yeah.
Which is actually amazing, and that's been a point of a lot of discussion. But believe it or not, there was no what I would call a major dam failure, which is astonishing in an event like this.
But that's what we thought, and then no sooner than it came up, and I really think if that surge wouldn't have hit, a lot of the devastation that happened around here would not have happened. It would have been bad, but that's when all the houses, all the cars, everything came down. They came down in one mush.
Right.
And no sooner than that came up, it was up, took about 15 minutes to get up, it dropped that 6 or so feet in the next 15 minutes.
Right.
So
it was truly a flash.
It was
a flash of flash floods.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was a surge of a flash like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I would be curious to see if that was the experience of other people in other drainages. I have an idea that it probably was, and it's probably a reflection of the saturation conditions before that last crazy punch of rain that actually was the hurricane remnant itself hit in this area. So with the saturation as it was, it's going straight in the river. There's going to be no infiltration and slowing in the soil. Like it's whatever falls on the landscape is going directly, immediately into the channels. Now, an interesting question to ask, and this is probably a time if we can flip it to my computer here maybe, and we can kind of like look at a crazy map here. It's useful to put all this in context, and if folks haven't seen the various YouTube features over the past few weeks, what I've got lined up there is Google Earth with a digital elevation model over it, and this is color coding the landscape by elevation, right? So the white colors over here are high mountains, brown is not quite as high, and then these kind of oranges and yellows are lower, and then the greens are lower yet. So where the hand is on the right side of the screen there, that's sitting over Lake Adger. There's the Green River Cove. That's coming up through the Narrows there. You got Big Hungry coming in from the northeast, and then the Upper Green up to Lake Summit and beyond goes off the screen to the left there, right? So in this part of the world here, you got sort of two sets of colors on this screen. You got the high stuff here, that's the Blue Ridge Plateau. Base elevations up here, 2,100 feet, 2,200 feet, something like that. High mountains here, looking at this like Bear Wallow area, that's in the 4,000s range. You got some stuff up here. Actually, that's Bear Wallow up there. Excuse me. This is up behind Chimney Rock. So that's that's Rocky Broad Gorge there. Reedy Patch Creek, the Broad River coming down 9 there. About 1,000 feet down here in the Piedmont. Base 2,200 feet up to the 4,000s here in the Blue Ridge. When the weather comes out of the south, and we've got the views kind of spun around here, the weather comes from this low elevation Piedmont, and it gets pushed up these slopes up onto the Blue Ridge, and that's where the crazy rainfall happens. Okay, so that's setting the stage here. If weather had been coming from the left to the right of the screen and had already been on that high elevation, you would see kind of a different pattern here. So the reason
and it would have already went over the balsam.
It would already gone over high mountains. Yeah. Is a totally different layout, right? So if we can creep out a little bit further here and come all the way out here, it's onto this vast Piedmont, all the way from the Gulf of Mexico to the Blue Ridge. There are not any mountains in the way there, so the air has a straight shot, and it's going to come up this sort of mountain front up onto the plateau, and it's going to be leaving a lot of its rain on these highest peaks that are right there, kind of at that step up, at that edge of the Blue Ridge. So
is that the headwaters of Big Hungry?
That is the headwaters of Big Hungry. So believe it or not, Big Hungry starts over here, right at the world's edge, as they call it. It's like a hike out to the world's edge. That's where Big Hungry starts. Big Hungry flows directly opposite to the green in the cove, and then it enters the Green River Gorge, and then comes out of the cove and into Lake Adger there. The thing about Big Hungry, and I wanted to actually, I made plans here. I wanted to actually like trace this out to show what it looks like. I'm going to trace the river with a black line, just so it's easier to see.
I gotta say, you're amazing with this little program.
Thank you. That's why you're paying me so much to appear here today.
Retirement funds.
Retirement funds, exactly right. Okay, so there's Big Hungry to Green River, and here is the rest of the Green River that comes in from completely the opposite direction, comes into Lake Summit, and then goes down into the Dries and the Upper Green there.
Draw in Rock Creek there real quick.
Which one's Rock Creek? That's Rock Creek. Okay, all right. There's that Joe Creek. That's Joe Creek.
Is that Joe Creek?
Joe Creek is up in there too. Yeah, sure enough. The do not go there by AW standards. Right? Yeah. So that's the overall Green River Basin there, and it's pretty strange looking. It's shaped kind of like a T, and in this particular case, it was from this direction that the worst flooding came, right? So if you wanted to put yourself a happy cloud right there, not in the Bob Ross fashion, we'll put our cloud there, and that's going to be the most intense rainfall right there. That's coming down Big Hungry, down through the Narrows, and then that's coming out through the cove. Now, as far as I can tell, from having been out in this area, the area under the cloud there got a ridiculous catastrophic amount of rainfall. I would be interested to know exactly how much. I'm sure no one ever will know exactly how much fell on those higher peaks. But if you look closely at Big Hungry there, we'll like circle it in, it parallels the escarpment.
Right. So it's
And
all getting the max.
It is tailor-made to collect the absolute maximum effect from rainfall going up the Blue Ridge.
Fascinating.
If Big Hungry had come in, if you had a different setup up here, Big Hungry was coming in, like that or whatever, chances are it's not going to see quite as extreme of a precipitation impact. And if you go up into the headwaters of Big Hungry right now, you can go out Upward Road, go out to Deep Gap Road, or like Oleta Road that comes down out of Dana. As soon as you drop down into the Big Hungry, and we'll actually zoom in and look at its landscape a little bit here. As soon as you drop down into some of these like upper stream gorges here, they are destroyed by flooding. I mean, like this, and it's the tiniest little. I mean, it's almost unimaginable how it flooded. Houses washed away. You literally could have lost everything to flooding in a stream that you could like jump across easily. And all of that water came out of the cove. Right?
So I mean, no one will ever know, like you said, but this could have been one of those 30-inch areas.
That's what I want to know more about. And there are episodes of flooding like this in Appalachian history, but they tend to be quite localized, right? They tend to be focused on maybe like this, just the Big Hungry Basin, got a fixed thunderstorm on it. It had been wet for days. It's in the middle of the summer, and there's a thunderstorm that doesn't move for like 6 hours.
Right. And
you will legitimately get 20-something inches of rain out of that. And it will do this, but it's in a small area. Amongst geologists, I think, that study this, there is sort of that belief that with this topography, with weather moving in the way that it did, there's like these high points where it really it went to the next level, and those are in the Appalachians. Usually those are like 30-inch event totals. I've talked to some National Weather Service guys. I would be interested to know if they can integrate the Doppler radar and see if there is a band just trained on a spot. But I will tell you, like, if you take Deep Gap Road down into Big Hungry, which would be kind of with the hand, it'd be kind of in that area right there. Houses washed away, houses destroyed by landslides. It's not a gorge on the scale of the Narrows by any stretch, and it's steep, but it's not that steep. And everything just blew up there. It went crazy. And I would assume that the flash you had, I mean, that is a flash that went down Big Hungry. All the banks are scoured out of the green. All the banks are scoured out of Big Hungry. It does not look the same.
But the upper green looks. I mean, it looks like a big flood, and there's trees and log piles, but the rock is the same.
Right.
Yeah,
we can toss a couple of these overlays on it here, and this is using that Sentinel satellite imagery. It's an interesting way to just to try to visualize, I guess, what might have happened here. So tilt this up just a little bit more. So we're looking down right now on two, and I thought I might have exported another one of these or two. No, this will be fine.
So let me ask
we
you.
We got the mouth of Big Hungry here. I'm gonna fade this one away. I think this is the one I want here. Nope, not that one either. Ask away while I get my ducks in a row.
So, you know what a gloth is? Like a. Okay.
You're gonna have to read me in. Read me in.
Like a glacial, when a glacier blocks the river.
Oh yeah.
And then it builds up a lake behind it and blows through.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I kind of thought there was going to be landslides or a series of landslides that blocked the river, and then they came through it once. But when I look at the video of my experience down here,
Right.
that flooding from when it was just barely crossing the road to when it blew up was about 3.5 hours.
Right.
And that rain hit, and your explanation of like, hey, when that heavy band hit, there was nowhere else for it to go but just streaming down. So it may have not.
Right, and just the question is how long would it take it to get here under those conditions through the channels? And I don't know the answer to that. Could you have had landslides like temporarily dam the river and blow it? Absolutely. I mean, I have. There's one in down near Bat Cave. There's one that like a debris flow came down. It crossed Reedy Patch Creek. What it did to the flow, to the flood already coming down, I don't know, because it was already a big flood. But it's very clear that the slide had so much power and momentum that it went straight across that flow and wasn't interrupted. So could that have happened in the gorge? Absolutely. Could you have one like mostly block the channel and blow out? Absolutely. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean that you might see that as like what would look like almost like a huge bank collapse in some of this imagery, but it one way or another, like the pre to post event here is it's crazy. I mean, it's like
Look at that swath. that's
yeah, so
cut
the
out.
river goes from basically invisible to just this bright white streak across the landscape, and that's because all the rock is
and you can see
polished,
it
like it's all
continue
clean.
up Big Hungry, but not up
Yeah,
the green
and that's
right there.
You know that's probably the biggest takeaway there is, you know, look at Big Hungry versus look at the Upper Green. Now the one thing you got to keep in mind here is that on this image, the sunlight is always a little bit from the south here. So just the way the Upper Green is flowing, you're going to get a little bit of a shadow there, and it's going to take a little bit of the oomph out of it. But you can feel very good about the fact that Big Hungry is changed, scoured, whatever you want to call it, way more than the Upper Green is. And there still is Lake Summit up there. I mean that would have somehow I'm sure it was drawn to some extent. It may have already.
It was like
not
99.7
really.
or
So
something.
then it
yeah.
was basically one in, one out there.
Yeah. It was
so
a run of river.
yeah. So what I've seen in the Upper Green headwaters, like way up there, that Joe Creek area, it's just not as catastrophic there as it is in the Big Hungry side.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to consider that maybe this one area got slammed so hard that was the major source. I mean, there was absolutely a flood coming from the Upper Green, but what came out of Big Hungry was obviously just, it was something else.
Oh man, that is hard to. I wonder if we'll ever, with the Doppler, I wonder if anyone will ever say, the first 24 hours was this, the second 24 hours, and the third 24 hours. Is that data available? Or is it just all speculation?
It will. I think it will be, but I think it's difficult over like topography like this. I think it's difficult to get every last detail out of it. I don't know that for sure. I intend to try to learn more about it, but I can guarantee you that there are a lot of folks asking those questions right now, because some of the flooding, again, at like in pretty small streams, like Flat Creek up at the headwaters of the Rocky Broad is another one. Huge debris flows there, probably the biggest debris flows that have been seen in the Appalachians since Europeans, I guess, have been thinking about those things. I mean, like for probably for hundreds of years. Absolutely immense. The flooding associated with those, and again, in tiny little streams, to see it, it's almost hard to believe. And where are the headwaters of the Rocky Broad? Right on the escarpment with a bunch of big high stuff, sort of exactly like Big Hungry. And they're set up just to collect all of that rainfall.
Well, I've talked to generational families in here. They were here in the 1916 flood. The
Right.
information was
Right.
passed down. And the highest the water had ever got, it was 6 feet deep on that road right there.
Okay.
So
So
it was probably 18
we beat
to 20 feet deep
beat the pants off that. Yeah, by a large margin. The flooding in the Swananoa River was absolutely at a level beyond. The French Broad was higher than it was in 1916, but it seems like the Nolichucky flood is another interesting example. The physical size of the Nolichucky Basin, for it to do 162,000 CFS or something like that, it's this big.
Is that what it got to? 160,000?
That's what I've heard. Yeah, that's what I've heard. So that's hard to believe. Like you would have absolutely looked at tens of thousands of CFS coming out of the green for sure. No way around that. And I don't know. I got the LiDAR thing going here. This is a really cool way to look.
What are we looking at here?
Look at the river. This is we're gonna zoom out, right? So if you're in my line of work, it's important to figure out who is really good at making awesome stuff, and then you got to work with them, right? So we'll fade those away. You got I-26 coming here. You got Upper Green coming along. There's Big Hungry, and it's making the turn.
That's the gnarly O's right there.
So my friend and colleague Corey Shipe lives up in Saluda. Put this LiDAR together. Part of his PhD, actually, he was working for the North Carolina Geological Survey at the time. And this is basically showing you what the land looks like without the trees on it.
Right? You can see Pulliam Creek.
We could see more. So when he processed this up, he did it in such a way that you don't just see a flat area in the green. You in fact see all of the stream bed features here, right? So we could quiz you on what you can see, but the hand right there, that's like the hallway at Gorilla right there.
Now, is this pre?
This is pre. This is pre. Okay, so right here where we got the hand right there, there's a corner of rock there. That's sort of in basically like seal launch territory.
That's the Spectator. That's Green Ray Spectator. That's prime spectating right there.
Well, it don't look like that anymore. So if you went and checked this out, like you got Zwick's Booth right here, for example. That rock is still there. You can actually see the slot at Go Left right there in this imagery, which is absolutely nuts. All of this is going to look different. The banks of the river are going to look crazy different. I mean, this landscape is one that if we tilt our view here and kind of look up the canyon there. I mean, it's a rough place, right? You got all these cliffs. They've been shedding material down there. Before this flood, I would have told you that a lot of those really big boulders were things that fell off the cliffs, rolled in the river, and they were just going to sit there. Like it wasn't really going to flood big enough. They were going to kind of weather and break apart, and of course, like Grizel Island has gone. I mean, like the scale of what this flood did. Because it's being routed from a pretty big drainage basin just into this tight canyon. It did a lot, and it's going to be. It will be thought provoking. And we'll put it in those terms to see just how much different this looks, because it's gonna look profoundly different. And the fact that Corey did this so you can see these stream bed features. You can do this throughout western North Carolina. There's going to be a lot of rivers that are quite different.
Yeah,
now.
Props to Corey on this. This is a great LiDAR map. Well, I did get in there a couple days ago.
Okay.
And it is impossible. The rapids, not only are the rapids completely different, they're in different spots on the river. There's still gradient. It's still falling off the mountain.
Exactly.
But, where individual rapids are moved 20 yards upstream, 30 yards downstream.
Right.
Like you say, the bedrock's gone there, but that's not the only place the bedrock is chipped away.
Right.
And you can fathom rocks rolling down the river, but it's just hard to fathom just the bedrock.
It is, yeah. So shout out number 2. I gotta prepare all my shout outs for my good people here. Kristen Chilton up at Virginia Tech did a PhD with my old advisor up there. Still in Blacksburg, actually doing research on trying to model what bedrock in streams, which is always broken and fractured up, as you'll see here, what it does when water flows across it, right? So this is a model she made. You can, I don't know, take a screen capture here or something. See this on YouTube. We're gonna get this thing rolling.
Here, make it big.
Make it big. Oh God, I don't.
Nope. Yeah.
Is that good enough? You want to do
That's
full?
good. That's good.
How about that?
There
There
you
you go. So if you watch
Can you
these,
rewind it?
yeah, I'll rewind it. Okay, we'll start from the
Come on, I
beginning.
only get you like this for a little bit, man.
No, we're good. We're good. So in this case, if you look at Gorilla, the layering in the rock tilts slightly downstream, right? So as the water flows across it, it gets almost like a lifting force, and it can get edges and kind of pry material away. Now the rock in the green is totally broken and fractured up, and what you end up with a river like that is that pieces get pulled off of the bottom, and then they get transported and they pile up for a while somewhere, and then those break down, they move away, and you start the process again. But if you watch these little chunks, they like lift.
Yeah.
They lift and float away there, right? So when you think about like the big slab at the seal launch, with that force of water flowing over it, the way the rock is broken there, you can see that big plate almost being like see,
Look
like
at that.
there they go, like in slow mo. Super cool to watch this. Incredible to watch this. So those are like ceramic. They're ceramic tile chips, but with their shape and the moving water, once you get that profile turned to the water, you can actually throw I don't know what's coming up next, parking spacer. We don't want to watch that.
So
We gotta watch YouTube,
so
man.
let,
We'll run
let me
away
ask
with
you,
it.
in your field, these are like theoretical things, and I mean, this is proof that they're happening. Like,
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
that's
like,
right.
as
Yeah,
a geologist,
yeah.
are you like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, well somebody did this, and they theorized that this could happen, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, he was right, it did happen.
Yeah, no,
Or she was right.
there's a great deal of interest already in looking at what moved there and how it moved. And that, like, when you look at the I gotta draw you.
You gotta get in there, Phil.
I
You
gotta
gotta
draw
get
you
in
something
there.
in paint here. That's the whole thing. We got to draw a picture here, right? We'll see if I can draw and
I'll sit here all day.
see if I can draw and talk.
Go to the
all right?
auction page. Great deals.
All
Liquid
right.
Logic custom
Can we
power
see- yeah,
slides,
we can see
$700
all
bucks.
this, like there,
NRS
there,
men's
there.
Phenom dry suit, $1,300 value, available for $650.
All right, so we got to hit at least one here. So here's my stacked cake of bedrock, right?
Okay.
So kind of a gorilla type thing. So let's pretend this thing's really shattered up and fractured up here, and we're just gonna start like pulling.
Where's upstream and where's downstream?
Oh, you're gonna see, John. Don't
Okay,
worry
okay.
about it. Don't worry about it, bro. I got you.
Bayou books and Bayou books.
Yeah, you've been telling me that for years. I don't like that, man. I haven't got my table to like rest my arm on here. This is gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. All right, so we've torn a big chunk of rock out of that thing. All right, so let's I don't know. Let's say another big period of repeated storm events for 1,000 years or something comes along here, and we're gonna like pull another big chunk out of there. Okay. So now we've got this deeper kind of like hallway thing going on here. I need cheering from the background there. This is gonna wear me out. So we got something like that.
This is good.
Okay, so we'll keep this model going here. Keep going. So we'll take some chunks out upstream, and the reason I'm doing this with this kind of like right angles and whatever here is that's very much the nature of the fracturing in the rock in this part of the world here. So now we've removed chunks from the stack of rock here, but it's in squares. It's in squares and blocks.
It's kind of like the flume of gorilla right there.
This, folks, I'm telling you, that's why I'm here with this man. Okay, that's why I'm here with this man. This is not just just an everyday guy here. This is John Grace, everybody. I mean, it's an opportunity to be here. It's a privilege to be here. I'm gonna have to draw my water in green here. It ain't gonna be white because the rocks are white. Sorry about that. It ain't perfect, but
I would have went blue, but it's okay. It's the Green River. We'll let it
bro,
slide.
look at the water in the Green River. Has it ever looked blue to you? Give me a break, man. It's green, greenish, brownish, whatever you want to call it, right? So I'm gonna start like maybe getting a sense of what we're trying to do right here. We got the dip there. We'll kind of brighten that up a little bit, kind of on top there. And so that's pretty much your gorilla. That's your gorilla setup right there.
Can we auction this off?
If you want, man, I'll draw you something better than this, bro. We get to talking again. I'll just get to drawing. But there's your left turn. There's your left turn through the notch and on the gorilla. You're actually like turning the corner. You're turning the corner around this like fracture, right? And that's how gorilla turned into what it is. It's just like you saw in that YouTube clip where there are bit by bit pieces of rock break off.
Yeah.
They break off along the fractures and on the layering. Like if we overcomplicated this drawing, we draw all the fractures in it because this is what the rock is like underneath us right now. It's absolutely like just chopped up. It's chopped up by fractures. Then you have more of them cutting across like this. So it sets you up to in the bedrock there just to pull pieces out of the bottom of the river, right? So that's how you end up with a rapid like a gorilla. And I'm surprised there is as much of gorilla left after this as there is.
Really?
Yes, sir, absolutely. I'm surprised that there is. I know, like, you know, if we kept kind of doodling here, you know, we'd have to like. You'd end up like kind of chopping the shelf off like that, you know, and kind of like, you know, come down something like that. I know in that area like some stuff broke off, but generally speaking, I'm astonished that it looks as much like it did before.
That's crazy you say that because it doesn't look anything like it used to.
Well, okay, no, so no, that's interesting because to me it does because. When I look at it, this is what I see.
Right.
I see literally that. I don't know if we got enough Control Z's in us to get that green out of there at this point. We got close. That's what I see. I see the rock pattern.
Right.
Underneath it. Like I don't. And I see when I'm trying not to make a fool of myself with a canoe full of water and everybody yelling, and I've been waiting 3 hours in the field. You know what I'm talking about? Come on, like. But
if you go a little faster, you'll bump up.
We've talked about this. But that's what I see is I see the structural framework. So when I look at it, it's like I mean there's like a rock sitting up there that's pushing the water. It's pushing the water over the. Basically, it's like it's pushing water over the top of that thing right now. So the way the water looks is different, but. Much of that framework, that geologic framework, is still there, and that's actually very surprising to me.
So, but a lot of places when you get in there, you won't even know where you're at.
Oh, I do not doubt that.
You know,
I do not doubt that.
Especially when you get a little further away from the bedrock, when you get down below sunshine.
I'm sure it's totally unrecognizable.
You'll find something, a cliff band. A lot of times you only know where you're at based on the little creeks that are coming in.
Right.
You know, Camp Creek's there. Okay, I know where we're at. You know, that kind of thing.
Right.
So
as we talk here, we're gonna try to make you something to auction here.
When are you gonna get in there?
Man, I don't know.
You should get in there tomorrow morning. Are you spending the night?
I don't know if I'm spending the night, man. I may have to, bro. It's been a long period of time here, sir. It's been a long period of time. No, we're just gonna doodle. Just keep talking. Just keep talking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm interested to hear you say that. You know that to you it's like gorilla's not at all the same because from the geologist standpoint, it's massively the same. That is to put that much volume of water through that constriction there. That's one of the craziest places in the southeast.
Yeah.
I mean that just from the and that is the heart of the gorge. That is where like the geologic change is really localized. So we had talked about this earlier. What a lot has changed, but the elevation of the river is basically the same. The gradient's the same. The tops of the mountains are still the same. If you had seen like more rock collapse at Gorilla, and literally the Gorilla drop had moved like 50 feet upstream, that's almost like what I expected to see.
Right.
Like there would have been enough big chunks that moved that it quite literally pushed the bottom of Gorilla further towards Lake Summit.
Right. You thought it was going to cleave off more upriver.
Exactly.
Interesting. And then there's some rocks that, you can tell it's very obvious the rocks that moved and the rocks that didn't. And I
Right.
would say 80% of the rocks moved.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, we
Probably more than that. Probably 90%.
well, I mean, we're gonna be able to tell you that, probably here at some point down the road.
But it's crazy, like the Portage Rock at Sunshine,
Right.
exactly how it's always been. Even the rope for the portage was still there.
Was it really?
And the whole world's blown up around it, like downstream of there where that cave is on River Right, just below Sunshine,
Right.
It was all the way above the cave, like took trees off above the cave right there. So, I mean,
That's-
how deep is that? You tell me. I don't know.
I don't know how deep it is, bro. You're the one telling me to go up in there. You're acting like I haven't been I haven't been investigating to the limit of my geologic powers or something like that, which may be true, but we got work to do. But no, I'm trying to
try
make you
harder.
something here that's actually worth auctioning. So just keep doing your thing.
Are you not going to put Grizzle Island in there?
What's that? Nah, we're gonna kind of write it out of the screen. It's not there anymore.
Okay.
But yeah, the whole point here is that like I'm trying to show you like kind of how a geologist would see Gorilla, because it is like the most, it's kind of like the most geological rapid around. You said Bedrock cleaved off in other places.
Oh yeah.
Where
For
did
sure.
it cleave off?
The river left cliff below Sunshine before you kind of like get out of the gorge.
Okay.
There's several chunks of that that are
Interesting.
broke off.
Okay.
A lot of the banks,
right.
and I don't know if you'd call that the bedrock because it's on the side, but it seems to be connected.
If
It's not-
it's not boulders that rolled down the hill, it's bedrock, bro.
Yeah.
It's bedrock, and if those banks collapse off, that steepens up everything above them,
and
and that makes that more likely to collapse. So you're absolutely seeing, like the groundwork for more change taking shape there for sure.
The area, if you wanted to portage Beaufort Consequences
Gotcha.
below Whaletail on the left,
Sure.
all those boulders that are there are gone.
Okay.
But that's where all the river goes now, and it's because it's cleaved off like a crack on River Left. So there's like a crack / slide on River Left that has sucked all the water out of Beaufort Consequences.
So yeah, like Beaufort is a really interesting place because that's basically like the top of the Narrows, right? That's like the top of the geologic Narrows. And no, not Beaufort. I'm sorry.
Whaletail.
I got caught up.
Go
No,
left.
Bride. I was
okay.
talking Bride. Yes.
Bride's the same.
So Bride's so if like stuff fell off at Bride, that would be really interesting because that would mean that the bedrock stretch of the gorge had like shifted a little bit upstream. Like that's the way of thinking of it from like a geological perspective. Is did the lower elevation downstream part of the green, did it like move upstream? And that's the question that ultimately would be like, is the river like just absolutely like forever different? And it is, but it's the level of difference. It's like how the geologist sees it versus how the paddler sees it.
You guys are weird. Were you guys just
man.
all texting each other after this, being like,
Yes, actually,
I guarantee you were.
it did work something like that. Yeah, because I was out of internet, right? Power went out in Greenville. I would go up to this Lowe's grocery store, and go up there and like try to talk to people. And I think some of the stuff you were putting on Facebook was like That was like some of the first stuff that I saw. I mean, I knew it was going to be a crazy, it was going to be a crazy type of event for sure. But it was just like, well, how crazy, how crazy is it gonna be? And
So it's funny. In my paddling career, going to places like British Columbia or Costa Rica or wherever, you almost expect river changes.
oh yeah,
But here
yeah.
in Appalachia, a big river change to me is that boulder moved to the right,
Right.
or something like that.
Right.
There's more water on the left side now versus the right. This is the first time I've ever experienced anything like this. Do you have any historical account or anything where there's been this much geologic change documented in
Not-
an event?
Not on this scale. No, I mean, you would ask yourself, did things like this happen in the 1916 flood? They may well have. Nobody was watching them. You know what I mean? So there's not that legacy, if you want to call it that, of record keeping. It's interesting to hear you put it in those terms because
I mean, these are old mountains.
Yeah,
I don't think of them as evolving much.
the places that you described, right? These are places that are, we would call them like either currently tectonically active or more tectonically active. British Columbia
I think
was.
you got to have more difference in green between the trees and the river.
Oh, bro, give me a break, man. Come on, this is Microsoft Paint here, bro. Come on. This is what you.
Anyway, didn't mean to
This
interrupt.
is what you came for,
Didn't mean
man.
to
This is what you
interrupt
came for. No, those places, like their history of change and the scale of that change is bigger and more recent than here. So yes, you would expect a place like that. There's more energy in the landscape than we should have here, right? And I mean, there's energy in the landscape here. There's elevation difference. How steep is it? How is it distributed? You get a rain event like this, it makes the landscape more able to take that energy out or access that energy. So that's a thing that a lot of geology folks have said thus far is the rivers look like Nepal or the rivers look like Pakistan or something.
It does.
It's because those places, the way they flood, the way they move stuff, the way they blast the rocks, you have that bright, clean, almost like rougher rock surface.
All you have to do is go right up to Fish Top and look up river, and
Yeah.
you're gonna see
Yeah.
you're gonna see something totally different. We got some comments here on the Facebook page.
What do you got on the Facebook page, boss?
People are giving you props on your drawings.
Oh man, we trying to hold it down here. We're trying to hold it down. I'm trying to frame up. This is going somewhere scientific, I promise. I just John and I have to bat it back and forth here a little bit just to kind of like set the stage here, All right, but no, so this is about where we're trying to go with it here. Yeah, you can screenshot this, John, and I'll sign it for you. What do you think of that, man? You want to do something like that?
So our biggest bids right now, we've got 2 bids on Arlen's stained glass for the women's plaque. That's going big. We still have a lot of amazing values on the auction right now. It's starting to evolve. Share our feed with anybody that you know on whatever your social platform is. We're going to be here for the next few hours. Here in a second, we're going to have Dixie Marie Prickett come up. She is going to get into the details of the gear and what's going on. Big props to Nathan Silsby for being on the drone, coming in last minute, giving us those, what do you call them, devastating aerials?
Damage.
Damage
assessment.
You know what I mean? Something
I
like
do.
that.
I do.
Yeah, just make sure you go to our auction page. We got a QR code on the stream. You can jump onto our Facebook page and get all the deets there. It looks like a mess here, Phil.
It does.
But it looks so much better than it has. I mean, it's the amount of work that's been done, like just having this field full of debris. Just this one little spot here.
Yeah.
It's quite ridiculous.
I was actually talking to Pat about this earlier. Like the amount of response and the amount of workforce that came here and just and when I say here, I mean throughout Western North Carolina, East Tennessee. They just attacked when all this was done. It's truly remarkable because it's something that this was national news for quite a while, and it'll continue to be. But like the scale of what this did to the landscapes, the infrastructure, people's daily lives, like it's big. I mean, on the national scale, just natural disasters, big picture, this was absolutely huge. And to be able at this point to come here, the number of trees that would have come down, like I can't imagine what this looked like. I mean, it would have been.
Oh, God.
It would have been unreal, and I mean we're able to sit here and do this. It's something.
Yeah, and it's, I got to give a shout out to specifically there. I could tell you all the groups that help out in a disaster, if you ever want to know. The ones that are a hindrance, the one that's help, and whatever.
We'll keep it positive. We'll keep it positive.
I'll tell you, but the paddling community, the level of resourcefulness
Right.
that was happening there. I mean, I had within 48 hours, generator, ton of gas,
Right.
Starlink, fresh food, bourbon. I mean, it was
So
ridiculous.
you had all all
and it
fronts,
was
all
just
fronts.
like paddling community coming in here, and then we kind of set the whole ranch up, and you can still see parts of it out here as like a distribution area.
Right.
And for that first week, it was being filled by paddlers. Like Chris Wing was up top.
Yeah.
People were bringing stuff in. There'd be a dozen people hiking
Yeah.
stuff. I'd meet them with the UTV at the bottom of the trail down there, bring it down, boom, it was out, and it was just all paddlers for that first week. And then they continued to help after that, but there wasn't such a need because once we could get UTVs around, it became less dire. But it was off the hook, man. And that's just because everybody, has a connection to this river.
They
so
do.
They were
No, they do.
extra motivated.
Absolutely.
In a lot of
Yeah,
cases. But no, it's off the chain.
Throw me back here so I can close this out, man. Throw me back on the screen here.
We need to get Phil artwork back.
That's right. Let me just so we can put this one to sleep.
Mr. Kerber, can you give us over to Phil artwork? There we go.
All right. So I made this for you. This is my guy here. I'm honored to have the chance. But so you say you like draw you a nice gorilla picture. Well, like I don't know how you know where to put this stuff. Like so there's kind of a rock horizon like that. There's a rock horizon like that, and a rock horizon like that. You got all these same. You have these same kind of shapes in it, right? So if you want to like draw yourself a gorilla picture, you just got to think about where the seams, where the breaks in the rock are, and you can kind of frame it up. You can frame it up like that, and yes. So at this point, we'd have to get rid of a bunch of rock like on this end. So I think all that stuff kind of broke off right there. So we have something that like popped along one of those, one of those seams. Come on, White, give me a break, bro.
I just got a cue from the studio. We're on a 2-minute warning.
2-minute warning.
2-minute warning.
So you have you have change, but the bulk of those elements are still there.
Right.
So that's why when I say it, you can't run it the same way, but it's still there. It's still there.
So there's a line. I think there's 2 lines, depending on the flow.
No canoe that I will be running the green in will fit through them. So that's my excuse.
No, that's not true.
Can I do Columbus now? Is it like straight Columbus
it's good
now?
to go. It's totally good to go.
All right,
like
now.
there's not like
All right,
that
now.
like little funnel that keeps you from getting onto Columbus.
I seem to
like
only
it is.
succeed doing that when I didn't mean to going backwards. So now is my time. Basically, the flood has made this the era of P. Prince Columbus. All right. We can talk.
All right, where can our viewers follow you, Phil? You have a sick YouTube channel. What is it? Geo?
It is called the Geo Models because that's what I called it in 2012, teaching at Virginia Tech. It's like locked up in like a Google thing, so I can't change the name. If you type in like Philip Prince Geologist, you'll find it on YouTube.
And Phil has some fascinating videos about all the different, not all of them, but a bunch of different watersheds here in the southeast that he has done this same kind of work on. And we certainly appreciate you coming down here and spending your time. I know it's valuable.
Oh,
and,
no, this would not miss it, and flattered by the invitation, and I mean that for sure. This was like a special place to me. Gorilla that was a special place within a special place, absolutely.
Yeah.
And to be a part of this, it's cool.